First-person shooters are the thing that I played when I first bought my Xbox 360. To be fair, I only played the Halo series, but it has left a fairly poor taste when I look back on FPS games. Not because they play badly, but because in general they lack story and content. The bad memories have been wiped clean by Wolfenstein: The New Order, the alternate history World War II Nazi killing simulator. Or at the very least, that's what I thought it was going to be. The New Order has a surprising amount of depth, story, and a really great look into the atrocities of World War II. The Nazi regime is just as evil here as they were in real life, and the game holds no bars in showing it to you firsthand. It does what a lot of media forgets to do, and that's actually add a sense of weight to the regime's actions. The totalitarianism of the Nazis comes across not only in the actions of soldiers and their higher-ups, but in the sound and the visuals of the game. The biggest surprise of Wolfenstein: The New Order is how story-driven it is. There's a point in the game where things start becoming more spectacle than they do story, but enough care is taken to get to this point that it didn't really bother me. Before Wolfenstein sent me to space, I felt engaged enough in what was going on that I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it, I'm ready to kick some space Nazi fucking ass. I think the reason for this is how much of an impact I felt I was having on the events of the game. I felt like I had a role to play in ending the war and fighting with the resistance, and if that meant flying to space, then I guess I had to fly to space. Although the Nazis have some advanced and ridiculous technology, Wolfenstein makes this more than just a threatening addition to the German Armada by exploring how they acquired it and some of the backstory behind it, which in my opinion makes for an even more threatening opponent once this is revealed. The game takes pride in its characters and in playing them as underdogs. It develops their relationships in combat and in downtime. And although I didn't love playing the downtime sections of this game, I appreciated what they achieved. And on that note, the greatest achievement of this game is elevating the main character Blazkowicz to something more relatable than Meathead Soldier. Granted, his character is still a meathead soldier who murders people into the thousands, but he has periods throughout the game where he reflects on his actions. He expresses some form of remorse and regret for what he does. And although it doesn't impact him or make him want to stop, it's still a step in the right direction that he at the very least thinks it out loud for the player. He has relationships within the game that aid this as well. Rather than simply wanting to get revenge or end the war, he has a goal for a better world for himself and others. More than this, he frequently mentions what he wants to do when the war is over, and I think this makes him way more relatable than he would otherwise have been. And the moments where he discusses his ideas for the future are quite well handled as well. Just as well handled are the depictions of the Nazis and their actions. Not in the sense that it's a tasteful depiction, more that there's a depiction at all. It takes a lot of guts to show your audience, movie, game, TV, anything, the actual events that took place during World War II. And Wolfenstein uses this as a stepping stone into much larger questions about what would have happened had the Nazi regime continued. They wouldn't have built moon stations or giant robots, but it's about the implications of the robots and the disfigurement of their soldiers that asks these questions. As for the actual game, it plays like a dream. Although a few aspects of the game were a bit arduous in the aforementioned downtime sections, I had a great time playing through the levels and will probably return to it one day. Shooting mechanics are as fun as they've ever been in Wolfenstein, but the variation of enemies and overall difficulty of the game add a new and refreshing element to the gameplay. It wasn't a simple shooting gallery for every level of the game. What Wolfenstein does well is give enemies different weaknesses and make for more strategic gameplay. While sometimes it's nice to turn the difficulty down and just shoot the shit out of everything, I also had a great time in my first playthrough trying to figure out the best way to take down a variety of robots. The aesthetic of the New Order is something I mentioned before, about the totalitarian feel. Buildings and infrastructure look like everything I'd imagine a pacified and threatened city to look like. The monochromatic designs are that kind of perfect that implies darker things. Looking out over London after a few levels of the game was really something. The city looked like it should have been a vibrant and energetic place, yet the streets were eerie and empty. The Nazis and their war machines are quite something as well. Everything from giant super soldatans to everyday Nazi soldiers looks sinister, and the robots and machines share a similar aesthetic. The robots not only look terrifying, but they look in some sense tortured, like they're out of place and not supposed to be in the form that they are. The armor and the sharp teeth of the dogs has the same kind of feel to it, and some of the robots are honestly horrifying, because the New Order creates some things that made me feel really threatened and scared. The sound design backs this up incredibly well. Each enemy has a distinct sound to it, and it's not necessarily a single sound either. There's a group of amazing sound effects that play in association with the various robots, humans, and other enemies of the game, and this is part of what made them realistic and therefore more threatening. What makes the atmosphere of Wolfenstein so great besides this is the music. which sets the intense and insane tone from the opening menu. The crazy guitar riffs give gameplay that little bit more edge, and when you're not sure what enemies are lurking around the corner, the strings kick in and provide some incredible suspense that is pretty much unrivaled in any game I've played. The most interesting aspect of the music is its place in more emotional sequences. The crazy high-octane guitars and taut strings are replaced with more somber acoustic guitar pieces, and it makes the scenes where it plays, especially towards the end of the game, surprisingly melancholy for a game in this genre. Overall, Wolfenstein is a joy to play, regardless of what you look for in a first-person shooter, and I totally recommend it for everybody. Wolfenstein...
The New Order? That's a 9 out of 10.
I gotta go over here to... I have, the Word document saying what I have to say on one screen, and Audition recording my audio on the other one, and I press space, and it just presses space on the Word document, so I gotta click over to Adobe Audition, and then click space, as I'm about to do.